Vamos bastante mal de tiempo, así que vamos a abrir un turno de preguntas muy rápido y espero que las dudas más particulares y concretas se puedan desarrollar durante la pausa para el almuerzo. De forma que les doy la palabra tanto a los que están siguiéndonos desde casa como a los que están aquí para preguntar a nuestros ponentes.
Mateo, ¿hay alguna posibilidad de que los dos caballos estén hechos por el mismo taller? ¿El de Valmogen has dicho?
No, i balteri sono diversi.
Ok.
I balteri sono diversi e cambia la posizione dello scudo. I balteri sono diversi, cambia la posizione dello scudo. In un caso i due tritoni lo tengono, lo rivolgono, diciamo, di fronte, nell'altro caso è di profilo.
Okay.
Quindi i due balteri sono comunque diversi.
Ok, sono botteghe differenti.
No, non credo che sia una bottega differente, penso che abbiano voluto cambiare, perché comunque la bottega che lavora è la stessa, è una sola bottega. Diciamo che le analisi fanno pensare, da quello che hanno pubblicato fino adesso, se poi l'Istituto del Restauro nei lavori che sta facendo cambierà le carte in tavola, questo non lo posso sapere al momento, ma il gruppo appartiene comunque fatto dalla stessa bottega, cambiando delle matrici, insomma, sostanzialmente. Quindi per i baltei evidentemente hanno usato matrici diverse, ma probabilmente si direbbe, diciamo, che il cavallo leggermente più grande, quindi la statua equestre leggermente più grande, ogni volta abbia ricevuto un'attenzione maggiore. Ecco, che secondo me si vede anche nel balteo, insomma, leggermente nel fatto che lo scudo sia mostrato come il clipius virtutis di fronte. Ecco, quindi penserei che il personaggio più importante sia quello che aveva sicuramente i calci cosiddetti patrizi, insomma, che è il più grande, mentre quello il cui ritratto vi ho presentato è leggermente più piccolo.
E il cavallo che hai mostrato come parallelo nel campamento militare è anche un'altra bottega o è la stessa bottega?
No, questo è molto difficile da dire, sembra però che girino le stesse immagini, il prometopidio nello stesso. Quindi
forse può essere.
Può essere, però c'è qualche minima differenza comunque nella composizione, anche se la composizione è molto vicina, minime. Le differenze sono minime. Penserei che siano una bottega, diciamo, che lavora o nel Lazio o in Campania, insomma, verosimilmente, che fa queste statue equestri, per esempio quella di Augusto che è andata a Valghirmes, che probabilmente fa queste statue anche per committenze non strettamente augustee. Del resto Augusto con chi è stato rappresentato a Valghirmes non lo sappiamo. Secondo me c'era anche Varo da qualche parte, per dire, ma non sto dicendo, non voglio ricadere nel solito, non voglio dire che sia... Ecco, però mi immagino che anche un governatore provinciale potesse avere la possibilità di avere una statua equestre nei nuovi fora, insomma, fondamentalmente. Quello che succede a Valghirmes succede probabilmente dappertutto in Germania. E non solo in Germania, noi a Valghirmes abbiamo avuto un colpo di fortuna colossale a trovare sostanzialmente bloccato l'inizio della romanizzazione, i primi, diciamo, della cosiddetta romanizzazione nei suoi primi 10 anni di vita, ecco, più o meno, perché poi lì finisce tutto. Se non finisce tutto con la battaglia di Teutoburgo, finisce tutto con la campagna contro Arminio di Germanico, ma più probabilmente con Teutoburgo, insomma, perché poi la Germania Magna viene abbandonata e il confronto, insomma, è veramente molto preciso. Quindi perlomeno, se non è la stessa bottega, ci sono delle botteghe che rappresentano, che riproducono gli stessi modelli di cavalli, insomma. Quindi questo secondo me si spinge verso la fine dell'età del primo secolo a.C., perlomeno. Grazie.
Any more questions?
Thank you for such an interesting panel. I wanted to come to this question of limits, because Matteo, you were the only one in your title who specifically questioned the limits of stylistic analysis. But in a way, I think you all demonstrated this, right? You certainly showed us previous stylistic analyses that in your demonstrations are no longer compelling, right? So I guess my question is the limit of stylistic analysis intrinsic to stylistic analysis, or is the limit bad stylistic analysis, because in a sense, you all did revert to stylistic analysis, you just did it right.
Surely there are bad stylistic analysis anyway. There are bad statistic analysis, and probably there are also on Cartoceto bronzes in my case study, as the identification of Cicero or the identification of Livia or Nero Caesar. It is absolutely full from this point of view. There are probably, surely there are better stylistic analysis or very good stylistic analysis, but sometimes there is the danger of finding something that in the context or also in the archaeometry that have to change our opinion. Also, in my case study, if we in the moment when we have in the Valgirmes group, we need to change the result of the first stylistic analysis. Now we have a better context, and maybe looking at the horse and also trying to find an explanation, a better explanation, we can have more data, and we can also have a better understanding also of the style. And it depends. The stylistic analysis often are the only strategy we have. An ancient art historian has not the data of the modern art historians. There are the intrinsic problems in our work as art historians. We have no data. We have often a paradigm with a stylistic evolution, and but in the reality, for example, you know that Perusino and Raffaello erano contemporanei. In our we have not the same information about ancient art, and also on the Greek art we have usually we have only the model of the protos euretes, the first who has invented something, who has found something. So it's not easy, but it is the better strategy we have when there is no context. We have always to improve our data to find a better stylistic analysis, but there is always a danger. And it is often I can try to find the name of Cartoceto group, but I have to know that it is something like a boutade, and something that could probably be wrong. Okay?
I would like to add something. In my view, the Cartoceto group, the interpretation of the Cartoceto group, started always to find a big name in Republican times. It started with this. So the experts didn't use their eyes at all. It was not about style. It was about, this must be a very special group, and so I need to find a historical person who dedicated it and who is depicted. So maybe experts, but no eyes.
So your case, the way you showed to me, that one problem with style analysis as it's often practiced is it's the last thing you do. Once you make a hypothesis based on other things, and then you do some stylistic analysis to support this. And you showed, I think, in the case of your Esquiline sculptures, that when you re-examine the data, this falls apart. And in fact, it wasn't really stylistic analysis at all. It was a support of some external thing. So that actually is not good connoisseurship, I would say.
My case is totally different. the sculptures were always, since they were found, they were always dated to the late 2nd century AD, always. Only in the 1990s, some archaeologists read an article by an epigraphist and said, oh, we have to change our mind. So they looked for reasons to date the style later. And you could find some reason. But in my view, it's the wrong way to do. First, you have to ask, is it convincing to date the term komes and the term diasemotatos on the inscriptions so late? And why is it, must it be like this? And then you start looking for the reasons, and there is no reason. And so you start to look again if the style is really late or not. So my case is totally different. And I don't know why archaeologists, quite often I have to say, are influenced so much by epigraphists, experts' opinions or interpretations. This is why I use so often the term interpretation. It's an interpretation. It's not written there a name of a known emperor or a known person whom we can date exactly to a certain period of time. Why do archaeologists rely so much on inscriptions, on the dating of inscriptions? And why don't they look a little bit further? Because there are so many inscriptions. Now we know there are several articles published later. Now we know that both terms show up in the late 2nd century AD. So maybe this is not astonishing at all. But we were fighting a lot about style. We were fighting about style, you know. And then the next question arises. I'm astonished that nobody asked, what style? Is the form to build muscular on these Aphrodisian sculptures, is this form style or is it motif? In my view, it's motif, because it starts on the Pergamon altar, which you know very well, and then it goes through only the Aphrodisian workshop in the 1st century. We know a lot of sculpture now found in Aphrodisias. That's really awful. It's 3rd class or 4th class in quality. But from the 2nd century on, it's wonderfully worked. And it's always the same as motifs. But then how they chiseled the eyes, how they drilled it and so on, there are differences, or in the hair. But these are the details, and it's really hard. We are fighting a lot about this. But the background is always a political, let's say. Pagan statues were not anymore produced in late antiquity in Christianity. Something like this is in the background. And so you argue around this without looking at the style, really.